we look at this as men and women as two separate classes, but I would also remind people that there are other sports that use other things as well as that. So, there's plenty of sports that have weight classes because they recognize that being of a certain size, regardless of whether you're male or female, has an advantage. And so it's not, men and women is the most ubiquitous difference that we use for lots of sports. There's other sports that use other things as well. Right, and that's a good example. And boxing, mixed martial arts have weight classes, and another great example is the Paralympics. Right, so Paralympics has something like 70 classes, right, for challenged athletes. So someone might have, cerebral palsy. There are different impairments based upon the classes, right? So there are people that have, strength issues. There are people that have, difficulty, running uphill, things like that. So there are different classifications of impairments in Paralympics, and so there's the same exact thing. There are rules set up and governing bodies set up so that they can create those classifications and enforce them. So the frequent argument that we've been seeing in the public sphere is Michael Phelps, where people are saying, well, how come they don't regulate Michael Phelps because he has super flexible feet and he has long arms and he has low lactic acid buildup? And to me, this is just really an invalid argument, right? Because we don't have protective classes for swimmers with short arms or non-flexible feet or short swimmers. So that to me is clearly a flawed argument. But we have protective classes for male, female, for boxers and MMA fighters, for physically challenged athletes. And so if there are governing bodies that have those protected classes, we have to, or they have to, enforce those classes. They have to, all right? So that's one of the arguments that's out in the public sphere that I continue to see that is to me not a valid argument. So do you agree with that? Yeah, I mean, I guess I would say if we were to see, like hypothetically, if we were to look at our swimmers and see that they, there were two sort of big groups of swimmers, right? The swimmers with long arms, say, and the swimmers with short arms, then you could imagine that it would make sense for the governing bodies to decide that we should have these two classes for right. different level types of swimmers. It's much more of a continuous trait, and also I think we've recognized that individuals like Michael Phelps that have these particular suite of characteristics are somewhat unique. And so if we were to create those kinds of classes, well, then there'd be Michael Phelps, and then right. and maybe a few people, and then everyone else. And so it's not sort of a meaningful competition at that point. And that's something that the IAAF keeps referring to they're trying to ensure fair and meaningful competition, which is an extremely high bar to reach. I think that's the challenge, right? Is that you have to decide what that means. Right, exactly. And we don't have the short NBA, right? So any NBA player that's below 6 feet tall, but if they ever did, create such a league, someone would have to create rules, and then governing bodies would enforce them. So I think you're right on target with that. So based upon some of the developments here, Caster Semenya has basically three options. She can continue to race the 800 and 1500, but she would have to, under the new requirements, she would have to take medication to reduce her testosterone below 5 nanomoles per liter for at least 6 months, or have surgery. Or she could run distances not covered by the regulation. She can go down to 200, up to 3,000, up to 5,000, or she could just retire and do something else. So now, so obviously testosterone is the thing that they're keying on. So what is your understanding of the ranges of testosterone for males and females?
Yeah. So the difference is really, 10 to 100 times, just to put that out there, because sometimes it's hard to imagine numbers, right, when we're just sort of saying them out loud. But the ranges in women then are about 0.05 to about 2 nanomoles per liter.
Okay.
So 0.05 to about 2, roughly. And then in men, we see it to be roughly around 8 to about 30 nanomoles per liter. So that's a big difference. There's definitely a gap in there. That all of that said, that doesn't mean that there's nobody in the middle, and that's exactly where Caster Semenya is in the middle.
Mm-hmm.
And so you can kind of see now where this problem is developing, is that if you're using testosterone as your guide to determine who can compete in which class, then for most people that will work, because you choose a number in the middle, which is what they've done. And most people would either be above or below that by a fairly significant number. But that doesn't mean that there's nobody in the middle, and there are people in the middle, and that's where Caster Semenya is.
So that's pretty significant. So you said that the upper range for females is, did you say 2.5?
So, so in the general population, most women are going to be below 2.
Below 2.
Now, there's plenty of women who have different medical conditions. So, for instance, women with polycystic ovarian syndrome, which
Right.
is a fairly common thing, they can, if we look at the 99% of women, including those with polycystic ovarian syndrome, then you're getting up close to 5.
Right.
So already those women are above that limit that they've set.